Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I am the food. I'm losing my mind already here at the early of the show. Um, I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, please feel free to drop your questions into the comment box, and you'll see me turn to the side from time to time to check and see if there are any inquiries for our guests. I want to welcome our sponsor, the Pearlstone Center. Pearlstone offers environmentally friendly, full-service hospitality. Their beautiful facilities and natural surroundings create the optimal setting for memorable events and group gatherings. Today's guest is Vasudha Viswanath, a lifelong vegetarian, a passionate home cook. As a former strategist in business and technology on Wall Street, she left her career to write Vegetarian Reset, 75 low-carb, plant-forward recipes from around the world and create a community. And she also created a community for those who focus on eating mindfully and sustainably. It is called We Ate Well. The just released book is timely for those of us who have overindulged in the holidays. Let's welcome Vasudha. Hi,
Hi
Vasudha.
there.
What's on your plate today other than this interview?
Well, I am cooking because I have another interview this evening. So I was prepping a couple of dishes for that. Other than that, I have a 3.5-year-old who is in school right now, and she's going to be back in a little bit. So I'm sure she'll have, some demands of me. So I allow some time for that.
Well, um, let's kick off. The question is, why did you write this book?
So you mentioned that I have been a lifelong vegetarian, and I have, and I've always been a passionate foodie and a home cook. I loved cooking even as a child growing up in India. I moved to the US for grad school over a decade ago and really continued on this journey as I moved to New York City and tasted all of the global cuisines that the city has to offer. My husband and I would dine out often or order in, and we traveled a fair bit. So I really got to kind of experience and learn so much about these other cuisines and cultures. But at the same time, even though I think a lot of people perceive vegetarianism as the very healthy option, we're eating a lot of green salads and healthy smoothies and steamed vegetables. The reality is that a lot of people who have been vegetarian or vegan for longer realize that you can't really be happy eating that way. So you end up eating a lot of refined grains because that is really the most common sort of center of your plate option that is available today. And you go to any restaurant, you're ordering the fried rice or the pasta or the pizza, and you're not really thinking about the vegetables in that meal. Um, and I think the same goes for me. And so a couple of years ago, I had a physical where my doctor pointed out that my blood sugar was elevated and was in the pre-diabetic range. And this was really a wake up call for me. It came about a year after I had my child. And I was really trying hard to lose that post pregnancy weight, and it wasn't coming off. And this kind of intrigued me and made me want to research it more. And my doctor said, minimize your consumption of rice and pasta and bread. And I started to think about what I was going to eat instead, because every meal that I've ever had kind of revolved around these things. So that's really I would say that was the catalyst for me to start transforming the way that I cook. I didn't find anything inspiring on the internet, so I just ended up adapting the recipes that I would cook at home to be low carb. So, for example, I would use rice cauliflower instead of grains, or spiralized vegetables instead of pasta. And I found that as I cooked, and I cooked all of these global dishes that I knew, that I wasn't really missing the refined grains anymore. For me, it was all about the flavor. And it was so interesting to cook all of these meals with these fresh, whole, unprocessed ingredients and still get, so much satisfaction. The meals were really satiating, they were delicious. And more than anything, I felt better. So that really was, I think, the sequence of events that led to me writing this book.
I know that people are looking, is the book adaptable to vegan? Is it adaptable to keto? Is it gluten-free? I've looked over the book. Let me just grab it real quickly so everybody can see it. And they've seen it in the promos. And it's hitting the shelves next week, or it's already on some of the shelves?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the question is vegan, keto, gluten-free?
Yes. All great questions. And the answer is that over 80% of the recipes in the book are vegan, or they can be very easily made vegan by simple substitutions like oil for butter. And I have, for every recipe that is not vegan but can be veganized, I have this little note saying to veganize, do this. And so I hope, and all of the vegan versions have been tested. So I hope that, people that are completely plant-based, I think they will find a lot that they can enjoy in the book.
Right.
Is the book keto? Sorry, did you have a question?
No. Go ahead. Finish.
Okay, so the book is not specifically a keto cookbook. I do use some higher carb options like legumes, for example, that you might not really consume on a keto diet because you're trying to keep carbs really, really low. However, there are several recipes that do fall under that keto bracket, not because I was trying to, they just happen to. And I think you will find plenty that you can enjoy there as well if you want to eat keto when you're plant-based. And finally, gluten-free. Now, this is an interesting one because as I was writing the book, I had not planned on specifically writing a gluten-free cookbook, but it just ended up that way because most low-carb ingredients tend to be gluten-free. So I'm using fresh vegetables and I'm not using any grains or flour in the recipes. So they're all kind of naturally gluten-free. Of course, you need to watch out for certain ingredients like soy sauce or oats, for example, that might actually have some gluten in them, and use appropriate versions of those ingredients so that they're gluten free. But if you're gluten free, you're going to love this book.
Right. In the book, you have some specific ingredients. The one I have to ask you, because I guess I've never noticed, you use almond flour, but it's blanched almond flour. I've never looked for blanched, or is almond flour automatically blanched almond flour?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think a common one that people have when it comes to almond flour. So typically in supermarkets, you will get two kinds of almond flour. One is called almond meal, and one is called fine or super fine almond flour or blanched almond flour. Now, the almond meal is just basically ground almonds and with the skin. And so it's coarser in texture. And if you use it, it's delicious by itself. But when you use it in baked goods, you're going to get a much more dense, sort of coarse texture. Now, the blanched almond flour, on the other hand, that's with the skins removed, and then it's ground more finely. So that I find if you're trying to make, dessert or a bread, that might be a better option. If you want to make a nice chewy cookie, then you could use almond meal.
The almond meal. So basically, if they're finding the fine almond flour, it's blanched.
Yes.
And almond meal still has the skin on it, a little bit coarser, a little bit denser for your finished product.
Mm-hmm.
I was noticing, was it Small Bites? You were doing zucchini chips.
Yes.
And there was no flour in that. I thought that was very interesting. I didn't mark it off. I didn't know where I was going to go when we were talking. Zucchini
Yeah.
chips. That is done with.
I do
I mean,
use chickpea flour though in that recipe.
oh, okay. But chickpea flour is just chickpea. It's
It's
not.
just ground chickpeas, so it's not a grain-based flour. And but it will give you a little bit of a coating on those chips, so that they kind of crisp up a little bit more. And then, of course, when you add Parmesan to anything, it tends to taste a whole lot better than it did before. So,
Sure, absolutely. And I like the idea that it's your impression or take on international flavors. And I see Greek recipes, Russian, Spanish, Italian, Israeli, of course, Indian, Asian, um, Spanish, potatoes brava, Italian, cacio e pepe, pad thai, spring rolls, chutney ramen. That sounds very interesting. Shepherd's pie, dan dan noodles. So we're not going to say it's totally true to a dan dan noodle. It's your version of it.
Yes. Yes. And I'm really clear about that in the beginning of the book when I talk about my food philosophy. These are not, for the most part, the most authentic representations of all these dishes. And, by all means, I am not the expert on these dishes. What I have tried to do in this book is that if you're trying to eat a lower carb diet, food with a lower glycemic load, then these are really delightful versions that I hope will inspire you to cook and eat them. And I hope they bring to you and that my readers are able to see the love and the appreciation that I have for all of these cuisines and cultures and their flavors. And I hope I have in some way been a bridge to those flavors if my readers don't know them. And
I,
then, maybe they want to learn more about that cuisine and learn to cook it really well.
well, I think you come to the table, no pun intended, with a knowledge of spices. That comes from your background. And
Yes.
we as Americans are finally growing and accepting newer and newer spices. So I think, sometimes we just want that change of flavor. Somebody did a cookbook on chicken soup, and every cuisine makes chicken
That's
soup.
interesting.
Right. But each one adds its own touch, its own regionality to it. So
Yes.
this just gives you a flavor burst. Before I forget, because I get carried away with the conversation, we have a sponsor, Pearlstone Center. They're going to come in with a 15-second commercial and be right back with you.
Pearlstone Conference and Retreat Center offers environmentally friendly, full-service, farm-to-table hospitality. Our beautiful facilities and natural surroundings make the optimal setting for memorable events and group gatherings. PearlstoneCenter.org.
We're back.
Hello there.
Why don't you tell us more about your We Ate Well? Now, people define that is V8, the letter V, the number 8, well.com, or in your social media, V8 Well. Tell us more about how that community came together and how it's growing and what it does.
Yes. So I started this a couple of years ago as I began to write this book. And I call this community We Ate Well. And the V and the 8 was just my husband's clever spin on that name. And it also made for an easy social media handle. So it's a community for foodies that want to eat a healthy diet. And, I think it represents my journey because I always loved to eat. But for me, food was always about the pleasure of eating it. This looks delicious, so I'm going to eat it. It sounds delicious, so I'm going to eat it. And it made me feel good in that moment. But often later I wouldn't feel that great. So now my relationship to food has changed, and I want to eat food that not only looks and sounds delicious, but also makes me feel better later. And this is the hope and really the content that I bring to this community. Um, so people are signed up for my newsletter on Substack, which is at b8well.com, or people follow me on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or TikTok
You got them
as
all covered.
b8well again. I'm trying. It's exhausting, but I'm trying.
Agreed.
Um, but newsletter, I would say, probably has, the deepest kind of level of content, and I really enjoy writing. So it's something that I've been enjoying doing the last couple of years. And so I bring to my readers recipes often, of course, and lots of different kinds of recipes, kind of with a global twist or a little bit of an Indian influence in a non-Indian cuisine that you might see more of in the book. Um, but I want it to be a resource not just for recipes, but also for information on how to make good choices. And a lot of people might not know things like how to choose a high quality olive oil, or if you eat dairy, what kind of dairy should you eat? And I try to do interviews with experts, publish that information. I do book recommendations, anything that I've personally found useful. So this is really, I think of myself as exploring this wellness space as a foodie, and then I just want to save people time and pass on what I've learned. So that's Be It Well.
Well, I notice in the book, which I'll pull up for people again. Okay. You do have recommendations on books that they can read and get more information. Yes. And in the introduction of the book, I think you just sort of covered it. You talk about a culinary trilemma of vegetarianism. And you were just explaining it. You're a foodie, you're a vegetarian, and being healthy. How do you bring that all together? You did it in the book. The book answers that dilemma, and I think will answer it for others. And, definitely coming off the holidays, we all give ourselves a pass to be bad. Oh, it's the holidays, and you do the cookies. And
I do too, full disclosure.
Okay. So, your health challenges, you've worked, how has that worked out for you? I know that you said that, there's only so many cycle classes you can take or exercise. It's not going to take some of this weight off. Was it successful for you? I know that's a stupid question. It probably is. Yes.
It's not. I don't talk too much about, like my physical transformation or anything like that in the book. So it's definitely a good question. It worked successfully, certainly for me. Those stubborn pounds came off almost frighteningly quick. I think my body just woke up to this whole new way of eating. And, just little things like my skin cleared up. But I think the biggest change that I noticed was my energy levels. I really felt so good. And honestly, I think I feel better now than I did like 5 years ago, just by eating a whole foods focused diet. And I feel like that part was really what made this way of eating a sustainable way of life for me, because now I crave feeling this way. So, when you talk about the holidays, yes, I ate a lot of carbs. I did, of course, try to make sure that I had enough protein and greens and stuff like that. But I didn't, try to restrict myself too severely. I went out. I had, some of that champagne. I did most things that most people would do. But at the end of that period, I was craving feeling like myself again. And I knew exactly what I needed to do in order to feel like myself again. And so I did it. And so that's what I hope this book gives people the tools to do. It's okay. Don't banish your favorite foods from your life, like eat cake at a party by all means. But when you bias your diet towards whole foods like 80% of the time, then you automatically feel your best, and then you will gravitate towards the foods that fuel you to feel your best. And that's the reset that I talk about. It's a reset in your preferences because you want to feel your best all the time.
Right. What does sustainability mean to you?
Yeah, I think, it's a really big topic today. And I see so many people, even people that I know, just turning to a plant-based diet because it's better to the plant, it's better for the planet. And I think I want to remind people as a lifelong vegetarian that just simply shifting your diet to plant-based does not necessarily mean you're eating healthy. For any diet to be sustainable, not just for the planet, but for yourself long term, you need to be intentional about getting the right nutrients to feel good and make that a sustainable way of life. And you need to be eating delicious food to feel good. And I feel like the focus is heavily on really processed food like burgers and junk food alternatives, and just not enough on how to cook a delicious whole food meal when it comes to a plant-based diet. So um, sustainability for me is not just sustainability for the planet, but sustainability for us as people, just being able to change their way of eating and change their way of life. And I think, I want to quote from a United Nations report here a few years ago that found that 75% of the world's food comes from just 12 plants and 5 animals. And of that, the majority of the calories comes from just 3 plants, and that's rice and maize and wheat. So even if you're plant-based, you're probably not eating as many vegetables as you think you are, and you're probably not eating as diverse a set of vegetables as you should be eating. And this implicitly means that we're just not getting that diverse set of nutrients that you would get if you ate a really vegetable rich or fruit rich diet. So I think it's just really important to be intentional um and try to eat I say in my book, put the vegetable back in vegetarian. It's not just about the rice and wheat.
Right, right. Um, I usually ask some different questions at the end of the show, and we're coming close to it. But before I do that, I want to tell people in the book, which we're going to call which is called The Vegetarian Reset. Everyone, you can find it on Amazon.com. It'll be out in the bookstores. Some already have it. But you did the chapters like one would find on a restaurant menu. You go in, there's appetizers, small bites. So it's all broken down. What a clever way to set this up. It's how we understand food, and even have smoothies in there, which might not be on every restaurant menu, but they are in there. And I'm definitely going to be tackling some of these recipes because I'm curious to work with the chickpea flour and do some of these recipes, because at my age, I have health issues that go way beyond yours. So anything I can do to sort of make it better. So back to my questions that I like to ask people. What was your best bite this week?
I've been developing a recipe with it's adapted from one of the recipes in my book, the cucumber papdi chaat, but I'm trying to develop a winter version of that with crispy sweet potato like sweet potato chips, and edamame for protein. And then I layer it with nuts and these tangy chutneys. It was really good the first time I made it. So I plan to publish it soon.
That's great. Sounds good to me. I like chutneys. They're just, I worked for a spice company, and I'm very much indoctrinated into many, many of the spices that people don't even know about. But it's still sometimes so much, and putting it together. But that sounds good. I'm hungry, so you can't sort of. If you woke up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would that new talent be?
Well, I would love to be able to read the minds of the people who are going to make a recipe from my book, because I really just want to anticipate what, substitutions they might make, or different styles of doing something, or different devices that they might use, or any mistakes that they might make. So I can just warn them in my recipe, so that they get it right the first time. I think I've gotten a lot better at recipe writing since I started, but there's so much to learn there.
Yes, it's not as simple as people think. Suzanne Fass, who's in New York, is a cookbook indexer and has worked as an editor with many, many different cookbook authors. And she's the one who really taught me how to write a recipe. Your ultimate culinary fail?
I had a couple of disasters while recipe testing for the book. And one of them was the chickpea crepes that I have in my bread section. So when I developed the recipe, it was all smooth sailing for me. Like, the crepes were beautiful. They came off the pan. I used them for wraps. But when my testers did the same thing, they just bombed. One tester showed me a picture of this big gloopy mess in the middle of her pan. And it took me so long to figure out what happened. And then I realized that I had mixed up the batter, and then I'd gone away to do something else. So the batter had rested for a couple of hours. And that was what really made it come together. And I was able to get those crepes off the pan easily. And so the batter needed to be rested. And I had to work like Sherlock Holmes to figure out why it wouldn't work for anybody else. But, we got to the bottom of it, and the instructions of the book.
And if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, I think I would tell myself that it was okay to put myself out there. And by that, I mean, share what I thought was a talent, and not really, think that people might not be interested. I've always loved cooking. I've always loved writing, but I'm a private person, and I really just kept it to family and friends. I never even shared on social media until quite recently for We Ate Well, and I never had a blog. And I do wish that I'd had the courage to be vulnerable and put my work in front of others all this time. Then I think I might have been an even better cook and better writer than I was. And I think we all have something unique to offer the world. So I just urge anyone to don't be shy. Just show the world what you got.
Agreed. And my final question, what didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Well, I think, my philosophy here with the book is that it's easy for me to just talk about eating healthy and, oh, it's going to make you feel great. But at the end of the day, I think everybody's got their own problems, and sometimes we just don't have the headspace to make a big change in our lives, cook a different way. Maybe there's foods that we are kind of emotionally connected to, rooted in our identities. It's hard to change. So I really try my best to make that choice easy. I don't want my readers to have to choose between eating healthy and eating delicious. You can pick up a recipe from the book just because it looks delicious. You don't have to worry about it being healthy. And you can eat it, and hopefully being healthy is a positive side effect. And and in that way, I just hope to get more and more of these types of wholesome dishes into my readers' rotations, and hopefully reset their health as they did mine.
Well, it's definitely, there's some recipes in here that I want to try out, and I'll keep you apprised. And I think everybody, it is Vasudha Viswanath's book, which is A Vegetarian Reset. Pick it up. And if you're a cookbook lover like me, beautiful photographs. I'm just going to open up. Do we have one here? There we go.
Yes.
Beautiful photographs. This has just been a joy. I love talking to you. And
Same here.
I wish you much success. And I'll be waiting for book number 2.
Yes, yes. Hopefully coming soon. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Next week's guest will be Chef Tourette Thomas of Kefir Kitchen, known for its elite chef services. And for many, many years, Chef Tourette has been a culinary instructor in the area. So I can't wait to have her on. We go back a ways, and she's done a lot of work. She took care of her grandmother for a period of time, and now her mother, and has been doing a lot of work and cooking foods for people, for seniors who have dietary issues. So tune in next week. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com. That's my email, or Instagram at Dara Cooks. All shows are immediately archived in video form on J More Living's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. Feel free to dig into our video archives of past shows. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. May your plates always remain full. We will see you next Thursday. Thank you for tuning in.